Morning, sir. I was in two minds today. I was just walking around the class to come, not to come. ఇంకేం లేదు మాట్లాడుకోవడానికి, మాటలు లేవు, మాట్లాడుకోవడాలు లేవు, ఇంకా అయిపోయింది. ఎవ్రీథింగ్ ఈజ్ డన్. వాట్ ఈజ్ లెఫ్ట్ అవుట్ ఈజ్ just to sit and look at each other. That reminds me of the last batch, on the last class I finished everything. I said, now I'll go. I remember one little fellow used to be there in that class who who has this hobby of saving snakes. So he's a part of a snake protection society, Hyderabad. The one who had helped about 10,000 snakes, rescued the 10,000 snakes or something, a big man, huh?
In Kerala also one man did that.
So వీడుండేది ఇంతే ఉంటాడు మళ్ళీ. And then the kind of snakes that he rescues are much, much bigger than him. So he used to sit like this on front bench. I finished everything I wanted to say. Ma'am, ఇంకోసేపు కూర్చోండి మేడం. ఏం చేస్తాను కూర్చొని? కూర్చుందాం, ఇంకోసేపు అలా కూర్చుందామండి అంటాడు. ఏమైనా పాములు ఉంటే పట్టుకోవడానికి కూర్చోవచ్చు. So, पामू इज स्नेक. लास्ट डे भी आपको थोड़ा सा ज्ञान दे दें. Sir, this is a continuation of what I have started in your last lecture. So quickly a few things that we would look into. And then quite a lot of other So, we were mentioning in yesterday's class that we are talking about evolution of political systems. As a part of that, we see centralized and non-centralized. The basic meaning of centralized and non-centralized is power. Authority is centralized at one particular place, whether they may be single individuals or maybe perhaps a group of individuals who are holding the power. We are beginning with the very fundamental political unit. I have mentioned this elsewhere. I mean, by the time we come to the end, it looks like, we have spoken about all this somewhere or the other. It's like, trying to recall what a few generations ago we must have discussed. Don't mind me asking questions here and there. For my own satisfaction, I keep asking, so you don't mind. Band was also a term we had defined at one point of time. If somebody could అడగాలంటే చాలా భయంగా. In fact, so it is both an economic and political unit. Band is both an economic and political unit, but Elman Service mentions band in the political institutions. That is a very fundamental political unit held by people who are at the fundamental level of economic subsistence. You remember the definition. Band is a close group of kinsmen who are nomadic, foraging communities who are always migratory. And nowhere in that definition we see something to do with the political institution actually. It looks like you are defining an economic institution only. Nevertheless, service says that there is a combination. No, you cannot actually distinguish economic and political units. I want to bring some interesting examples there and some interesting concepts. These are some people, two people I have mentioned there, Richard Lee and then Christopher Boehm. and those are the terms they have coined. Reverse dominance I used in the class some time back. Whatever for sufficient for your 10 markers, I am trying to say it out as you keep scribbling. So band is the very fundamental political unit which is found among the foraging communities. Sir, what you should remember is, first ఇది వినండి, తర్వాత అది రాసుకోండి. Whenever any political unit is asked, you will have to, generally for a bigger question they might ask, like centralized, non-centralized, state and stateless, you begin by defining what is the meaning of a stateless, which doesn't have a state, maybe stateless. But then, centralized, non-centralized, a proper definition is there. In the centralized case, you have authority centralized at one particular point that can be a chiefdom or maybe a state. In the non-centralized or acephalous societies, power is dispersed among the people. There is a diffused power. People decide. You may say that that may look like a democracy. No, we are not talking about that. People are directly participating and people have more authority, more power when compared to their own leaders. That is how band is that group, that level of political institutions where people are less powerful, people are more powerful than their own leader. Now, under each of them, what we expect you to write is, what is the nature of leadership there? In what ways they are elected, selected, or nominated, whatever? And what makes an individual a leader in each of these categories? And of course, we give some of the examples there. And something that is very vital in these questions is, how the so-called non-centralized ones are getting absorbed into centralized, or how stateless entities are getting absorbed into the state. This you will have to actually discuss in your answer. Are you there? Did you get the structure? Yedo alochistunaru. You are here? No. అంటే రేపటి నుంచి ఏం చేద్దామా ఈ టైంలో? Yes, we have free time, what to do అని. 2 రోజుల తర్వాత ఆ టైం కూడా కనబడదు. For 2 days the time looks to be very distinctively available, and after that this merges with the rest of the time, and you will have once again the problem of timelessness. So this problem of timelessness is timeless for us, so don't worry about that. Richard Lee was talking about band fissioning and band fusioning. These are grand titles you give for small phenomena. Lee's work was in the Kung societies. So several African band societies he studied. What he found there was every band was having specific geographical region. Within that region it operates. When we say specific geographical region, these are not fenced regions, these are understood, based on the mutual acceptance with the other bands. What he means by band fissioning and fusioning is, based on the availability of the resources, the band size may vary. Even this explanation we use it somewhere, but I might not have referred to this man. I did not talk about that social velocity. Tiv of Nigeria. Tiv of Nigeria. So bands actually expand and contract. Lee was also talking about what makes somebody a leader in band societies. He is responsible for giving food and security to people. That is the major job that he generally takes up. And there is one other society I mentioned there called Inuit society, studied by several people including Boas. Boas was talking about the leader, his titles and his powers in the Inuit society. There is one name that I have written there called Aisumaitok. Aisumaitok is the name given to the leader, which meant that he is a thinking individual. For a leader to be successful, he has to have a right thinking. He should know how to plan the expeditions. So constant failure at the expeditions doesn't make him a successful man. That's what, according to Lee, is a key factor of band leader. He should be able to give food to people. If he is not giving food to people, if he is failing in getting food to people, he has to actually give up his job. Otherwise, Boehm says there is a reverse dominance. People do the backbiting, people mock at you that you are a failure, but still you are not leaving the position, kind of. ठीक है? In the Kung Society's study, Lee was referring to how the leader is controlled by the people in several circumstances. That's where he gives out this statement that Kung have this statement that the leader has no special powers. The only thing leader has is he has the responsibility to take up if anything goes wrong. He has a blame to be taken if anything goes wrong. Many times, the helplessness is there in the leader. So I think those are not the societies where anybody would want to be a leader, as simple as it is. Availability or non-availability of food. If suppose in a band there are 200 people, if in that particular region availability of food is a question, there is some kind of a scarcity. So what they try to do is they identify from their own tribe which are the bands that are having good resources. So till the replenishment of their own territory, they shift their residence to those respective regions. So instead of the family staying patrilineally or patrilocally, they might shift to the maternal side because maternal side might be having the food resources. So once things are settled down, they would come back. That is the meaning of fissioning and fusioning. This is another population that was studied by a Western Shoshonian population. You remember? Shoshonian population. Shoshonian population, actually this term occurs in culture ecological studies, ecological anthropological studies, that was studied by Julian Stewart. Thank you so much. All my love for you, Julian Stewart. When we have tribe, how we define tribe? Social velocity, he talks about there is a measure of identifying how the merging of the tribes, merging of the bands and then unmerging of them happen. So it is something like seasonal. In certain cases, it may be a swifter one in the sense within one season if you are going back, you are doing it at a higher speed. That's what he talks about social velocity. Or it is a term that explains the speed of mobility. At what speed you are going out and coming back into your territory. By the way, how do you define tribe? మళ్ళీ చెప్పినాను. And their own territory. और कुछ ऐड करेंगे उसमें? Those closely related kin groups. Fine. Any particular person from whom we are taking the definition, or is it a random one? Ghurye, great. Now, when we look at the tribe level political units, it is understandable that a tribe is a very amorphous entity. Though we try to define based on specific characteristics, even today people struggle to define tribe in a way that is acceptable. We have seen in those classes when Ghurye was talking about tribe as an animistic one, or maybe half-clad one, or maybe geographically isolated, when these are the kind of traits that he was talking about, or backwardness, social backwardness, less level of evolution, cultural evolution, etc. Everything we try to challenge because tribes are not one and the same everywhere across the world, and that was what is the problem. And hence, the characteristics such as linguistic speciality or cultural homogeneity, territoriality, they seem to be the defining aspects of tribe. Tribes can be small or big, based on the region, based on coming together of the people. And but then tribe is seen as an evolution in an advanced form from band. So based on the size of the tribe, there can be different types of political entities. You can keep looking into the chart that you have written yesterday. Go back to that chart. At tribe level political entities, we have written two. One was kinship-based solidarities. I'm using the term solidarities because Elman Service had used. Otherwise, I don't have a fancy for it. Kinship-based political entities and then non-kinship-based political entities. Sir, if the tribe is a smaller one, which the membership in which does not go much beyond the kinship groups, then everything you have would be based on kinship alone, including political systems. But if the tribe is too very big, like you have the Gond tribe, it is so huge and vast and geographically distributed that not every individual may be a connected one based on the bloodline or based on the kin line. So there are regional pockets there, but everybody together, if they are called the Gond. So you have non-kinship based solidarities also. That is the meaning when I try to use this. Kinship solidarities and non-kinship based solidarities. In kinship based ones, I have mentioned their clan based political institutions, segmentary lineage based political institutions. We keep talking about each of them as you scribble. So maybe perhaps we do it this way instead of, otherwise you'd be busy focusing on that, less on what I say. See, I understand you very closely. Now, if the tribes are small, the defining unit will be clan. By default, it is observed that all the tribes have clan. So two social units are obviously there in all the tribes. One is a family, the other is a clan. We are not really bothered about whether the institution of marriage is there or not. We have to look at existence of the family and the clan. So clan is the first level political unit outside the basic unit of family. And pick up any tribe, say for example, Central Indian tribes studied by D.N. Majumdar, he had actually given a complete account of clan institutions. For example, Ho have clan-based political institutions to begin with. So if any dispute occurs, the clan elders resolve. If any major decisions are there, they take up. And there are other credentials like your age matters, your capability matters. Say for example, if you are in a hunting gathering tribe, the basic skill that you should have is hunting gathering. It is not that you are the chief of army and you cannot do anything on the field, it doesn't go well. And so if at all you are a horticultural tribe, the kind of skill of identifying how to grow these and what could be the seasonal thing, and basically the kind of skill required for your occupation is mandatory, apart from your skill to have proper relations with your neighbor. So it looks like any modern community, any modern civilized community, the skills of the leaders seem to be more or less the same. It's only that the context that varies, and hence the examples might vary. Segmentary lineage, we spoke of this. Segmentary lineages. I have said this 2 times in the class. One in the first half of your session, second in the very recent past. I won't explain the whole thing, but I'm giving the statement there. Segmentary lineage works on the premise that in times of a conflict, an individual sides with one's own closest kinsman. You remember? ఇప్పుడు చెప్పిన తర్వాత అంటారు. నైజీరియా, టివ్ ఆఫ్ నైజీరియా. నేను నా మానాన్ని నేను ఏదో చెప్తుంటే నువ్వేదో మాట్లాడతావు. టివ్ ఆఫ్ నైజీరియా. Segmentary lineage operates in two ways. One is in terms of conflict you side with your closest kinsman. Second one is in bigger tribes where a lineage system is existing and where status of the individual is based on the age, an individual's role doesn't get altered with change in the location. I repeat. In this bigger tribes, where segmentary lineages operate along with age-based allocation of the statuses and roles, a change in the location of the individual within the territory doesn't alter the role assigned to him. This actually has to be read along with what we said age grades. You remember? Age grades and age sets. Malli cheptam, problem em ledhu. The teacher's nastiest job is to keep reminding the students of what is already taught 1001 times. Age grades and age sets. So for now, let me complete the segmentary lineage thing, then I'll come down. What I mean by when you are changing position, your job doesn't change is, for example, you have age-based division in your lineage or in your system there. Say you are in the youthful age. When you are there in the youthful age or in the adult age, in the senior age, you have particular duties that are assigned. So even when for some reason you are traveling, you are on a visit to the distant place within your tribe's territory, even in that place, your duty doesn't change. Say for example, you have a war that came up, a battle that had come up with your neighbor. If you belong to one particular age group and based on that you have certain duties to perform, you will have to do those duties even if you are not there in your immediate kinship vicinity. That is the meaning when he says that with change in your location, your duties do not change. I hope you have got it. And that has to be read along with these two terms called age grades and age sets. Age grade, I said this earlier, that it is a loose arrangement of people in a particular age group. A loose arrangement of people in a particular age group. So a typical census kind of a description there, below 5 years, or maybe the children from 5 to whatever, the adolescents, the adults. The age bracket is too very huge. From 21 to maybe 40 is the adult age, 40 the senior adults, I mean the matured adults, and then you have plus 60, you have the old people, whatever. But then you are not having more meticulous categorization therein. So a loose arrangement of people belonging to particular age group, we call them age grade. Generally all societies are age graded societies. When we are using age grade, it also goes something by being unsaid is based on the age your position is fixed. So there is a hierarchy of the age there. The people at 60 would be generally considered to be superior to somebody at 16 kind of. On the other hand, when it comes to age set, this also was something that we have discussed earlier. I must have given picture like this. When I take up maybe Karimojong or Shavante Indians, they have 4 different age sets in their population. Not yet initiated boys, each age grade is divided into smaller segments called age sets. So it is not a broad division of this to this, and then you have something like this. So these are the broad divisions. Each of them we call an age grade. Each age grade is divided into smaller age units called age set. Age set means it is the individuals falling in a short range of age and all of them passing from one stage of life to the other together. I hope it got it. I repeat what I said. Age set refers to a small age range within which the individuals move from one stage of life to the other together. All the rites of passage are conducted together for that particular group of people. This becomes necessary if you have very intricately designed rites of passage, and there are duties assigned not simply based on age grades but age sets. I must have spoken about the crocodile clan. It was in that context I had mentioned this, age sets and age grades. May I go? Apart from this, in the tribe level political units, you have association-based organizations. So what you should remember here is, we are not only talking about the final political leader, the head of the whole entity, but there are people below that particular head. At different positions people are working. This might be quite interesting for you, association-based political units. You can actually have parallels in our own society. Unisex political units and military political units. Certain examples I have written there, Mayanga of Western Africa, Poro, Sande, Ija. These are the names of the tribes that I have written there. Mayanga, you can see second from the bottom, Poro, Sande, Ija. Those are various tribes in Ghana and then Senegal, that western part of Africa. So there are gender-based political associations. We do have, we also do have gender-based political associations. Sometimes, for specific gender we have women associations, men associations, LGBT associations. We have gender-based ones. Sometimes, gender is not really considered. They are unisex political units. So Mayanga are the unisex political units. See, whatever political units that I am talking about, gender-based, they might have different roles to perform. Are you there? Are you there? I am talking about political units at different levels. We are in the tribe level political units. Within the tribe level, we have non-kinship based political associations, wherein age sets and age grades is one way of understanding. The other is gender-based political units. Unisex political units of Mayanga are the ones that do not distinguish people based on the gender, but then they are those associations where young people are trained in the adult roles. You can actually look at them as youth dormitories. Mayanga political units can be seen as youth dormitories where the young people are trained in the adult roles. On the other hand, the tribes of Poro and Sande, they have separate male and female political associations. They are more dangerous actually. If unisex are there, you know what the other gender is thinking and trying to do to outsmart you. So they actually, as a group together, the roles are distributed and then they are training people. But when it comes to Poro and Sande, they have special women units and then men special homes. In fact, among the Poro tribe, the male folk do not live in the mother's household, meaning along with the mother, after 5th year. So only for the first 5 years they are there with the mother and the household. Then after 5 years they shift to the men's huts, men's homes rather. So they are initiated at 5 years of age, they are initiated, and then at every age there is initiation. So at 5 years of age their residence shifts. And from then they live in the mother in the male homes only. They are not actually coming to stay with the mother or with the wife. Very, very interesting. Female is considered to be impure. You're not supposed to live with the female after a particular age, after 5 years. But surprisingly, they thrive, they multiply, but still they are not living together. I mean, this is something that is very interesting. Whereas you have Ija. Ija I really love. I'll tell you the reason. Ija have women bachelor associations. Women bachelor associations. Membership is very interesting. Membership starts from adolescence. Membership starts from adolescence actually. But then it is not a simple adolescence. I mean, there are grades there. You actually become a member after adolescence, but you lose your membership once you get married. That's understandable. But then after marriage, if you want to retain the membership, gain the membership, there's a clause. That clause is very interesting. The clause is that only after you establish a separate household with your husband, bringing him away from the mother-in-law, you once again have a qualification to enter. See, ఎంత ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్గా ఉంది అసలు. Only if you have successfully broken the family of your husband, brought him out of the mother-in-law's clutches, you are establishing your separate household, then you get a membership there. And Ija is very much interested. Ija having, which is not a part of this, but then I can't leave them there. They have sorcerers. They have sorcerers, female sorcerers. They have female sorcerers. And the qualification of getting the status of sorcerer is that you should be a minimum 7 times divorcee. A minimum 7 times divorce. ఊహ ఎంత బాగుంది అసలు. Minimum 7 times divorcee, that is the basic qualification. So the understanding is that the more are the marriages and more are the divorces, more qualified you are to indulge in the devilish tasks. You must have tried everything that is devilish in the 7-8 marriages there. And hence you have got the qualification of being a sorcerer. But in the case of the males, we don't see such kind of qualification. Poor fellow, a simple male is sufficient. But in the case of the female, I didn't want to talk about that, but then Lakota Indians and then Cheyenne Indians, these are all Red Indian populations. They have military associations. So in the military associations, they give training in the martial skill so that you protect your tribe. Something very interesting here is, even in the modern warfare, for example, Vietnam War was there. The American government recruited good number of Cheyenne Indians to fight in the Vietnamese territory. Because these are the people who have a skill of the guerrilla warfare, and they are the quick adapters to new warfare techniques. And this is one interesting study, race-based study that was conducted among the American Defense Forces, from which tribes people are actually getting recruited. And this category, Cheyenne Indians, they have exhibited their presence in all the wings of American Army, whether it is the Navy or Air Force, etc. Wherever you go, their presence is inevitably there. No? Like how even in India we have certain communities that are generally there. The last one before, big man of Melanesia. Big man of Melanesia or Kapauku. Kapauku Indians. I placed him here because Elman Service says the big man business, big man's position, is a via media between a tribe and chiefdoms. He is neither totally a chief, nor you can keep him aside as a tribal leader. So we see that there is an emergence of formal political position. So far, whatever we have seen in the band and tribe, these are all informal political positions. On the other hand, the chiefdoms and state, they are formal political positions. When I say formal, you can identify them. The power is visibly there. Like, you wear that Khaddar, khadi kind of a dress you wear. You may not be a ward member, but then when you are wearing that, you are communicating to people that, see, I am from the political fraternity. So it visibly you are trying to show. You are wearing the pink thing there. So it shows that, yes, I stand for. You are communicating. There's a lot of symbolism there. A pomp that is visible. Ember was giving one interesting case about the position of big man in Melanesia. He's otherwise not so very powerful man, but his power is exhibited in the kind of house that he lives in. So this actually can be related to what we see in today's world. When we talk about prime ministers, presidents, chief ministers, etc., they have their own separate, distinguishably identifiable residences. Like our own chief minister has got his small bungalow in the 9 acres of land, kind of. So that's the kind of small distinction that we can make out. He is on a destruction spree now. He would want to bring down all the heritage structures constructed in the British and Congress times, and then want to bring everything with his face only, including the Yadadri temple. Along with the god, his own face should also be there on the stones. So he is actually trying to create an archaeological history for the future. People are criticizing him, but then after all, later, in the later generations, people would find it very easy to study the racial features. So maybe new kind of theories might come that this particular region was inhabited by people with these kind of features. He might be an exception currently. But then future people, because that is the only evidence that they are going to get. You don't call them truly nomadic, but then within their clan location they are, because mostly they are pastoral. They have a band and clan location. Within that location they are nomadic. So it's like the big tribe divided into several clan locations, and then each clan has got those age sets and age grades. Big man of Melanesia. So the pompous way of exhibiting power had emerged with such kind of institutions. The first thing that we see in him is his house that is very much noticeable. He has many wives, that's a different story. All the wives on one side, himself and big wife on the one side. But that is not the issue here. He has what is called mediation role, mediation and maybe perhaps negotiation role to perform. Mediation and negotiation. We will talk about them in the later part of our class. Ember was describing this entire story. There is one person called Pandu. That's the name he got from the tribe. So Pandu was somebody who was on a killing spree. His family members were killed by his enemy within the same tribe, so naturally head for head and eye for eye is accepted, so he was supposed to kill somebody else. The story goes like this. Sir, hand for hand and head for head is accepted, there's no question about it. I mean, nobody would challenge. But the thing is, knowing fully well that once you have killed, people are behind you. The tendency among these people is there's one facility for them. You kill, but then immediately you go and submit yourself to the headman there. The message would immediately go to people that this man had surrendered himself. So generally, what happens is I kill somebody from your family. Now I go and hide somewhere. What is accepted is, you may kill me or somebody from my family is fine. I am the actual killer. But if I am not available, somebody else you kill and your ego is satisfied and you are done. But then if I am hiding myself, unnecessarily my people would get killed. So what I do is, I go and surrender to the king there, to the chief there. Now the chief sends a word and then those people come. Negotiation should start. Negotiation can start only if a ceremonial blood flow happens. Negotiation would start only with the ceremonial blood flow. Blood is very important, sir. So they prick, they put the blood, at least a couple of blood drops there, and then they would start talking, and then maybe perhaps what is the minimum punishment that you can give. He may go unpunished later. That's a different story based on how you are able to communicate. Now, chiefdoms are the formal political units. So formal in the sense how you are dressing up. It might be how you are getting elected or selected. There's a particular process. You remember Sembagans, they are the chiefdoms. So there is a process. You have to prove your qualification based on that people would accept. So he has a formal structure, chief has a formal structure. Generally, chiefdoms occur in the stratified societies. And he has, he might be having a council of people. Each of them have a rank, have a position, have a status. Nevertheless, the entire power finally gets settled with him. Centralization is a tendency in every walk of life. I tried to mention there. Whether it is religion, whether it is polity, wherever you go, centralization occurs. And then below that man, there are people to work, assist. Sometimes even in the democracy this happens. When the democracy is only namesake, the man at the top does everything. The rest of the people are ceremonially there. Because you have to have people to fill the chairs. In such kind of governances, when such kind of chief ministers, prime ministers exist, your job is only to shift the file to that table. Where to sign, where to put a stamp is already communicated to you. You are only a vegetable there, asking to put your fingerprint wherever he wants. I didn't mean about anything, sir, anybody, sir. So, I have actually used these terms in the other classes. The exhibition of political power is one. I actually missed out on that one very favorite picture of mine. I did not bring that to you in your entire batch. But then, let's see, I mean, in some of the documents that are pending, I try to insert that photograph. There was one beautiful study of Sembaga where you see that the whole lot of pig are laid down so beautifully. And the guests are with a lot of amusement and interest looking at the slain pigs, because the pigs are offered to them. You can choose one. Like how in some of the restaurants you have this, you see the fishes swimming in those cabinets, and then you point out that one. So he will take in front of you and then clean in front of you and offer it to you, kind of. That way, slain pigs are there, and you can choose one from there for your own family, kind of. That is an exhibition of your wealth, whether it is political wealth, economic wealth, etc. You remember the term redistribution we had used. So chiefdoms go by redistribution, meaning they are centralized authority. They actually are the positions where all the resources get concentrated. From them, some of the resources are distributed to people, some he retains so that you can be governed. That's how, whether you call it modern taxation, etc., that is what is retained by the government so that government can govern you. And of course, definitely there has to be an economic difference between the people at the top and bottom that inevitably should be there. As long as you are a common man, you may wear some kind of makeshift clothing. But once you are there in the important positions like the Prime Minister, you have to wear. So I was trying to look at how the attire was changing in our Prime Minister. What are the various things that he was wearing? Not that I love to read about attire, but he's interesting. So, और कुछ लिखा है. So, Elman Service says that maybe the position of the chief has to be achieved or it may be hereditary. In the case of Sembagans, it was an achievement-oriented one. You have to prove. Prove with your pigs, prove with your wives, and hence you get the position. I really love that statement. More are the wives, more are the pigs. So beautifully he wrote, Roy Rappaport, more are the pigs, more are the wives, more will be the pigs. ఎప్పుడైనా రాయొచ్చు ఏముంది మాస్టర్, ఎప్పుడు రాసినా క్రిటిసైజ్ చేసేవాళ్ళు ఉంటారు కదా, and people are there to support also. And the more controversial the remarks are, the more popular you will be. So it is better to write more now. I have written liberally the examples. Chiefdoms are known for potlashes. I will read out, sir. Tahitians, Hawaiians, and then Sembagans, Polynesians, Melanesians, and all that stuff. And I also have written that every time it is not hereditary, sometimes there are tests also. Luapala, that is a tribe of Brazil, not the ceramics of China. They have tests. They have tests of valor, tests of bravery. So the best man they have to fight. The same Black Panther story. So chief is actually the beginning of the formal leadership. Once I'm taking you to the state, there is one very significant difference, because this is a topic that comes up generally, chiefdoms versus states. Sir, we are talking about evolution of political systems. We are talking about evolution of political systems. The theme also I told you in that class. And the way they actually make their armies is very chiefdom style. Patriot was actually showing us the war between the Britons and the French. Britain even by that time were more in the sense that more modernized or more civilized when compared to the French. French were actually having the makeshift kind of armies, which were temporary armies. There is a difference between a temporary army and a permanent army. In the permanent army, you focus only on honing your skills of the specialized skills of warfare. On the other hand, these were the people. You can actually compare that with the Romans and the barbaric people, where on the one hand you have a standing army. That is the purpose. So state is that entity which has a standing army. Chiefdoms are centralized political units with the absence of the standing army. This, Ember says, is the basic difference between the two. If you have written everything else and this is not there, you did not understand the crux of the two entities. So when I say that there is a state from the political sense, because you must have studied, Indian polity, political science and all that stuff. As a part of it, you must have defined the state. What are the defining features of a state? Sir? Territory, fine. Population, great. Population. Government. Recognition of, others recognizing that you are a state. A territory, people to govern, people who are being governed, recognition, but what you will have to add there is a standing army to protect your territories. Territory becomes important there, and governing, maintaining the territory, protecting the territory becomes a vital task in a state. Nation is altogether different one again, which we will be seeing in the later part of today's class. When we talk about state, we are trying to look at the people majorly, governing of the people. And these people, wherever they are staying, they have the territoriality. And taking this discussion ahead, look at that man. Such a beautiful smile. Such a beautiful smile. I mean, smiling from the heart is very difficult these days. All fabricated plastic smiles. Fabricated plastic smiles. Adentadi. మరి నువ్వు అట్లా షార్ట్ ఫామ్లో చెప్తే నాకేటొస్తుంది. సీతమ్మ వాకిట్లో అంట ఆయన వెళ్తాడు, Kani baga maku, we have the same temperament actually. So he goes, Mahesh Babu, he goes. Interview, he goes, and then the interview board says everything is fine, but you don't have a heart from the, smile from the heart. So the smile is, though the smile looks to be coming from the heart, look at the right hand side picture. The chief there is being paraded for the amusement of the modern people. We might be going to several tribal areas in the name of tribal tourism, ecotourism. When we go there, one of the common things we find is wherever you are staying, the people they try to arrange for, under the garb of the title, cultural shows. They actually bring the local tribals and maybe sing for you, dance for you, amuse you. That is no development actually, that's what is happening there. The man is being paraded. So he is no chief. Originally called a leopard skin chief, because he wears that leopard skin. Like you have Khaddar chief, pink chief, green chief. This is a leopard skin chief. So painful actually. It's so heavily painful. Their power being snatched off. That is where we see the stateless societies are being engulfed by the state societies. So all the things that we have said so far, that is band, tribe and chiefdom, these three are called stateless societies. In modern world, what we have, all the so-called nations, they form the state societies. And even if we are going by this qualification of standing army, they may not be having territories. This is very interesting. Some of the so-called nations, they may not be having their own territory, but they do have their own armies. The very popular is the Palestine. There is no nation of them. But then they have their own army. And some of the people have already recognized them as maybe a state. And in the name of nation, establishment of the nations, people have actually captured all the stateless societies in their vicinity. We ourselves are a standing example for that. We must have captured several chiefs, chiefdoms, several small and big provinces, several tribal chiefs, tribal populations. We have actually brought all of them together in the name of one nation. That is what is the place where the discipline of anthropology seems to be not happy with the terminology of nationalism. Under the term nationalism, under the concept of nationalism, you are trying to dilute the cultural rainbow there. You are trying to bring one single kind of, maybe the political rule, maybe one single type of a culture. You want people to claim the same nationhood, whether you like it or not. This is also the reason why we do this kind of a talking towards the end of your entire course. That is where anthropologists are being caricatured as anti-nationals. That is the problem. We will talk about that. So, state is something that has specialization, specialized political power. They have a territory, they have, name it, they have it. They have a power to draft the laws, they can enforce the laws. State is the one that has the absolute hold on the martial power. They can use the martial power. Nobody else can use. Government can use. So many times this question must have come to you. that what is the difference between you holding a gun and the policeman holding a gun. After all, your gun is more powerful than his gun. We are not talking about the power of the gun, we are talking about the power of the uniform. Of course, gone are the days when we used to hear uniform has a power. The moment you are wearing the uniform, a mana enters you and you are altogether transformed into a singam. సినిమాలే మిగిలాయి. మహేష్ బాబుని చూసి ఇంప్రెస్ అయ్యి పోకిరిలో చూసి ఐపీఎస్ అవుదాం అనుకున్నారు. పోకిరి చూసి ఐపీఎస్ అవ్వాలనుకున్నారు కానీ ఇక్కడ జరిగింది వేరే. There's a high amount of suffocation in the police forces. The other day, a very old student of ours, I think 2008-9 selection, got into the state services. The same year he got into IPS, he thought I would stay because this is the mother state. ఏ సిక్కిం వెళ్ళిపోయింటే హాయిగా ఉండేది, హిమాలయాలను చూసుకుంటూ బతికేసేవాడు. He chose mother state. And now division had happened, 2 states. That is one puzzle. They had to choose one. And now the puzzle now is he wants to be in Hyderabad, family is here, children studying and kind of. But then high amount of dilution of powers. So I was telling that Telangana police had always had this reputation of having a strong hold. They dealt with very strong issues, very powerful issues. Like, the Naxal issue is not a small one. The way they had dealt with, that's remarkably beautiful actually. So I was asking, you have such a great name globally, because you are the people who had been training people from across the world in this art of how to handle the left-wing extremism. He says, we are actually sacrificing so much to maintain that kind of an image. Because right now what we have is we can't even breathe. We can't even breathe. Our phones, our telephones are being tapped. People are listening what we are talking. Even a small word here and there, you flare it up and the media is there behind you. And so we have to mind our language. We have, of course, minding our hand had started long time back. We can't even move our hand and leg like we used to do at one point of time. Kicking first and then talking, that was the style earlier. Now we can't even move our leg and tongue, kind of breathlessness actually. And if at all you are still imagining that CIPS avagana adi అని అనుకుంటే కష్టం. I can't fill the gaps there. Don't get disappointed, you'll get a uniform. And you will get a lathi with the emblem. That's so very beautiful to hold. Lathi with an emblem and all those kinds of badges out there. And of all the things, what I love is the police belt. I used to tell my father, if at all I have to be the policeman. The belt is something that motivates. Everybody has got their own crazy kind of. Some people look at the beacon, car beacon, and then you apply for the exam. Some people look at the Billabantruth, and you apply for the exam. Kind of everybody has got their own fancies. But now I think, if at all you want uniform, yes, you'll get it. I don't want to disappoint you, but also the silver lining is that Indian police, especially police from AP and Telangana, they have reached remarkable levels in the UN police force. And మీరు అనొచ్చు ఇక్కడే ఏమి అక్కడికి వెళ్ళి ఏంటి అని. So I observe parliamentary language, parliamentary dictum. కాదా, ఇంకేం మిగిలింది అంటారా? But I miss those days when I had a very sharp tongue. I wouldn't actually mind what the other person would say, what the other person would think, because the kind of experiences life teaches. Thankfully, in the last couple of batches, I didn't have such kind of people, but I remember certain occasions wherein um, uh, senior policemen's children coming with their own gunmen into the class. నేను గన్ను నాకు చూపించి ఏం చూపించాలనుకుంటున్నావు అబ్బా నువ్వు? క్లాస్లో ఏముంటుందమ్మా, క్లాస్లో ఏముంటుంది? వీఆర్ నాట్ కమింగ్ విత్ ద బాంబ్స్ హియర్. బట్ దెన్ ద సీనియర్ policeman, so I had to put one chair for the gunman in the class, and later I said, it's very uncomfortable. నేను క్లాస్లో నీ గన్ను చూసినప్పుడు నువ్వు ఎక్కడ పేలుస్తావు అని భయం వేస్తూ ఉంటుంది. So I told him I will arrange a seat outside. You can be at the door. People will think that I have a gunman, you see. Kind of. నన్నెవడు చంపుతాడబ్బా, నన్ను చంపితే ఏమొస్తుంది? But then I'm so very thankful that, because people of late have understood that bureaucracy has no power. కడుపు చించుకుంటే కాళ్ళ మీద పడిందంట, ఎందుకు అని. సో పీపుల్ ఆర్ యాక్చువల్లీ నాట్ రియలీ బాదర్డ్ అబౌట్ దట్. It's only an outward pomp that is existing, and once you are there in the government, you are actually given the conveyor belt. There is no problem. Sit on the belt and keep watching what's happening around. You're slowly going and going, and then the belt takes you up and up and up, then down. You're there in the trash bin, and then suddenly, along with several others, this year massive retirements, sir. Massive retirements. Last week I was looking at the number of people that are going to be, the civil list has come, huge number of them, 2000, some batches there, 1993 or some batches there, totally they are going. Don't think that you are going to have new jobs. Government is shedding its skin, like how several kind of. So, anyways. This is what was the very significant thing I was talking about, the standing army. You have everything formalized there. Non-kinship based solidarities become important, market becomes important, you become more and more stratified. But I have to talk about that entity there. So these are the state societies. The state societies are more formal. They think that they are the only lord societies. For them, they are the only ones that live in an order, in a civilized way. Civilization doesn't mean that you do the crime that is unnoticed by the people. Civilization doesn't mean that you indulge in a crime in a secret way. This is a very, a tribe that is at a very basic level of evolution, in the sense that people generally feel that codified laws is a state character. Codified law is a state character. Codified, you understand. The meaning of codified law is for every mistake or a crime, there is a specific punishment, or there is a specific reward or award for whatever you are doing. So you have a codified law. It means it may be written, may not be written. The more codified it is, the more complicated it is. And also the language in which you write. So very beautifully we write. I really admire the kind of legal languages that we use. Nobody understands the legal documents. That's the whole purpose, actually. Even when you are entering government, you will also do that. You will also devise new plans and programs, developmental plans and programs. You will devise those programs and design them in such a way that it can never be implemented. They will do no good to anybody. But you spend so many years coming up with the so-called, the schemes and programs and policies, so that the people who are going to appear at the exam can study and write about them in the exam. That is the whole purpose, actually. So a lot of mind goes into that. I mean, this is what I mean, the kind of skill that you are going to have. Ashanti is a tribe of Africa, Western Africa, that is known for, so they are at a hunter gathering level. They are a hunter gatherer tribe. They have a codified law. Very, very unimaginable. A codified law they have, very complex one. That is the reason why, Durkheim was writing this. Not everything is simple with simple societies. Not everything is simple with simple societies. Very lovely statement. In order to lead a simple life is a complex thing. In order to live a simple life is a complex thing. It was not a simple thing for him to live only on a small linen clothing. When he had to shed his clothing and remain as such for the rest of his life, he was not doing it for fun. So much of complexity goes into that. Today's world is a different thing. No? Today's world, living with completely clad bodies is a complex thing. But for him, it was not that. Nupe of Nigeria was one other example of a complex law in a simple society. Punishments were so very complex. Coming to conclusions is such a not an easy thing. Nupe is known for adjournments. That is something interesting in the simple societies. One of the basic difference between the modern and primitive law is, in the primitive law, justice comes quickly. Primitive law, justice comes quickly. You don't go for adjournments. You have a meeting, people would come and then they would give you whatever they have done, and maybe the people, maybe the chief there, they come to a conclusion, they award punishment, and then there lies. Of all the things, divorces are very simple, the simplest ones. Somehow you feel that there is incompatibility, go and report it to the leader of the clan or the clan elder, the tribe elder. He would seek the opinion of the other partner. Partner might also say that I am also not compatible. He might say that he or she might say, no, I am compatible, he is not, but ultimately both of you are not happy together. Then he says, why unnecessarily? Go your way, go your way. And then both of you go and marry somebody else, and later you found them to be more incompatible. Then you say that the first one is better, you come back and then marry, re-establish the same family, continue from there. Maybe as a bonus you have got two additional children from the second marriage is there. Now previous marriage 2 children, these marriages 2 children, and next marriage you will have another 2. See, so many, you have benefits out there. Kind of. Nupe is known for adjournments. This is the other topic, sir. So your conclusion will be on state and stateless societies, how stateless is captured by the state, many times without the will of them. You can actually link there with the modern and tribal panchayats. LP Vidyarthi was talking about that. Different ways of, what is a general way of dispute settlement in your household? And who has the big say, last say? Your father, your mother? Father? No, mother. Great. I love it. Love you, Raja. There is one character called Posani. Dekhiye. Posani. Posani what? Posani. Huh? So you browse about him, you will get this dialogue. I love you, Raja. I'm not saying this to any particular person, generally. Many times gender specificity is lost in dispute settlement. Outwardly, the families, lineages look to be patrilineal, patriarchal. Just because you are on paper patrilineal, patriarchal, you may not be so in practice. It may be an altogether opposite happening there. And how your disputes are solved, that's one more important thing. Many times you may argue. है ना? You may shout at each other. You may argue, you may shout at each other. You may abuse each other. You may wrestle with each other. You may be quiet. Absolute silence with avoidance. Silence is very powerful, sir. నిశ్శబ్దం చాలా భయంకరంగా ఉంటుంది. మర్డర్ ఎంత సైలెంట్గా జరిగితే అంత వైలెంట్గా ఉంటుంది. Silence is the very beautiful thing, sir. Very violent. You can be the most violent with the silence. How many times?
In the part of war, silent treatment is declared as the most dangerous rule of war.
You don't know what the other person is doing. You are maintaining an absolute silence. You're not talking. The other person is clueless. The more you talk, the more you are sending signals to the other person about your plans, your opinions, what you stand for. The more you are silent, the puzzled the other person is. Try this, you'll be paid. I don't know. Most of the households are devastated with the shouts. My mom had this weapon of silence. With me, I mean, not with husband, that's a different story. Somehow with husband, people can't be silent. With the rest of the world, you can be silent, but with husband, it is difficult. But I lived in a household where silence was the norm. You whisper. Even a small noise is like a shout. It was more than a grave's silence that we had in my household. She used to kill with silence, wouldn't talk. When there is an absolute silence, we understand that there is an extreme wrong that had happened. Try this, you will get results quickly, rather than trying to use your throat. When I was mentioning this in that class of ashramas and the duties in each of the ashramas, when I said vak samyama, control over tongue, that's the most difficult one. You can actually look at your own self. Maybe over a week you can observe what you do when you are getting to that frenzy of anger. What do you do in the frenzy of anger? And every time if you are writing down what you are doing in the frenzy of anger, at that moment you must have done something. When everything is over, you sit down and write. Try to recall what you must have said, what you must have done. Some people throw things. My son also throws things, but he throws only the pillows. Suppose he caught a glass, he would say this. That's very smart. Even when you are in a fit of anger, you are trying to see to it that things are not damaged. Relationships will be saved. How many broken relationships you must have had. Broken doesn't mean that you are changing partner. No, I'm not talking about that. Within your family, within your friends, with your parent. Because a scar is a scar is a scar. It will always remain, how much ever you try to cover it. Especially the things that you have spoken. When you have spoken, others will remember, not you. You will conveniently forget. But the pain will be there in the other's heart. That will keep on. No? That's the reason where he says. Now let me look at this. Dispute settlement, you actually are asked like this. Administration of law and justice, quickly if I am going there are two ways. I am giving you Salins and Survey's way of categorizing dispute settlement. He was of the opinion that, he was examining this opinion that simple societies have more violent ways of resolution when compared to complex societies. Simple societies have more violent ways of dispute settlement. As I was saying a little while ago, head for head, the bloody kind of dispute settlement. There is one significant evolutionary trend that has been happening. When we were moving from simple society to complex society, we seem to have moved from violent ways of dispute settlement to peaceful or non-violent ways of peaceful settlement. But what has actually happened is the outward violent way of settling disputes has shifted to inward violence. Every time blood flow is not the only violent way. The inner bleeding people are not noticing. And that is the way in which the crime is happening. That is the way in which the dispute settlement is happening. You think that you have resolved the dispute between the wife and husband, and you have given them a divorce rather than seeing them in that infighting. But after that, where the scar is, that matters. The child is bearing the brunt of the scars. Difficult to handle. Those are the very popular things discussed by Salins and Service. Peaceful avoidance, this is what I was saying. Avoidance, excommunication, that is the simplest kind of punishment. But then long-lasting effects. People are afraid of excommunication, and hence they don't violate. Very tricky time you are in. Having a balance at this time is very, very important. Balance of heart, balance of mind. Slippery floor. Once you have slipped, you'll go into the whatever. That's the reason why we say we fall in love, we never rise in love. We always fall in love. There is an eternal fall there, a deep valley. You can't get up and walk the same. So don't fall. See to it that you have a proper hold. Even if you would want to slip, slip rationally. Think before slipping. I don't know whether your parents had spoken of this to you, because I think you belong to those generations where parents were still not starting to talk. One fine day when you said that I have fallen in love, parents will not hold your hand to lift you up. They would kick you out. But I welcome 10 daughters-in-law. I don't mind. Let him have a lavish life, if at all he brings them. The problem is he doesn't want to bring. I said even sons-in-law are fine, if not daughters-in-law. Don't know. Community action, we spoke in the song Jewel. Stone pelting, witch hunting, those are all examples of community action. Community comes together and awards the punishment. Negotiation and mediation. There's something else I've written towards the end, adjudication. Negotiation, mediation is fine. There should be somebody to talk to in between. He is negotiating terms between you two. Adjudication is he might be proposing some kind of a solution, why don't you do this? But then adjudication, he is spelling out a judgment. Both of you decided that a third party can give a judgment, and both of you would stand by for that. So the whole lot of examples of chiefs and chiefdoms. Apology, we spoke of this. Penal feast, penal feasts. Penal feast. Yes, అంటే పని అయిపోద్ది. So this is a Polynesian example. Penal feasts of Polynesia. Victim is actually asked to call for a community feast with the menu prescribed by the community leaders. Difficult kind of menus are given so that you find it very difficult to prepare. So basically it is all penal feast. You have damaged the property of the others. You have stolen things of the others. You stolen wives of the others. So there is a penal feast. దొంగతనం చేస్తే చేసావు, penal feast. The immediate question that might come to your crazy mind is, what will happen to the lady then? He had given a penal feast. నాకు మీ గురించి తెలుసు కాబట్టి. So it depends on the mutual adjustment, where you would want to go. The girl may be asked, where you would want to go, whether to the one that is stealing, the other who was actually deprived of. So finally the choice lies with the female there. So nice it is, so nice it is. You're not really happy with your husband, you engage somebody to steal you, and then the community says give a penal feast and then ask you where would you want to go. You say that I will go with the thief. Easily the dispute is actually settled, bloodless solution. Just imagine in the modern world, if something of that kind happens and the lady says I will go with the thief, you would become a murderer of both the people. You would kill both of them and kill yourself. All this honor kind of things, they make the life so miserable. At the end of it, whose honor you are trying to guard? Don't know. So do what you like in your life. Be happy. Parents దేవుంది ఈరోజు ఉంటారు, రేపు ఉండరు కదా. బతకాల్సింది మీరే కదా. What said? I don't think you expected this after so many days. There should be a reasonableness in life. Oath and ordeal, the difference is known to you. What is oath? How do we define oath? భరతనే నేను కాదు. How do you define oath? Invoking supernatural to be a witness of what you are saying. Ordeal, you are subject to tests so that your guilt is tested. Your guilt is proved or disproved. Oath has lost its significance in today's world. As long as you believe in supernatural, you believe in oaths. Supernatural has no power today, and hence you left oaths. Ottu teesi? Great. Oath is becoming a ritual rather, a meaningless ritual. So how many times with how many people you must have said promise? And every time you miss it intentionally. Ordeals are your subject to tests. D.N. Majumdar gives several narrations of ordeals. Oaths and ordeals rather. When D.N. Majumdar was describing the whole society, the oaths he described, I mean they are more or less like the modern oaths. They take the name of the god, their own gods. Hosts have got different gods. Ho, Mahler also, we have the same title. You remember this title? Gosains. Gosain is the name given to the gods by the Ho and by the Mahler. They have different Gosains. Jhanda Gosain, that is nothing but the flag god, or the tree Gosains, river Gosains. So they take the names of the gods when they have to make a oath. It's like, Gita, and then you do that stuff. Ordeals, ordeal is you are being subject to particular tests in order to say that you are guilty or not guilty. So in the Ho society, he describes two ordeals. One ordeal is that whenever you are tested for your guilt, whenever you are tested for your guilt, ఒక అరగంట అయితే నేను వదిలేస్తానమ్మా, ఏమనుకోవద్దు, తర్వాత ఇంక మీ ఇష్టం నుండి మాట్లాడుకోవచ్చు. In Ho, he describes this, in the holy place of the gods, they place the hot red axes in the fire. There is a fireplace, axes and knives are put in the fireplace, they become red hot, and if you lick and nothing happens to you, you are not guilty. And kind of. And similarly, that hot boiling oil in the holy place, put your hand, nothing happens to you, you are not guilty, kind of. Couple of years ago from Karimnagar district, same thing was repeated. In a village, there was a thief they have captured, and then the villagers decided to prove whether he is guilty or not. They said that put the hands in the red hot oil he had put, and you know what had happened, and finally, kind of, that is. Some people do this, temple ko without chappal, we have to go in the hot sun, if nothing happens to me, I am not a papi. దాని నుంచి పాపం కాదురా, నువ్వు పుట్టడమే పాపివి నువ్వు. You have the other ones. Individual violence is clear, head for head. That's very scintillating for me. At one point of time in my life, I used to have a list, a revenge list. I have to take revenge with this fellow. ఎదురుగా కనబడితే చాలు అన్నట్టు. ఇప్పుడే ఉంది, కనబడ్డా నేనేం చేసేది లేదు, కలిసి భోజనం చేసి వెళ్తాను. I think with maybe experience and with maturity, you become more composed. You have to know when to strike back. Just because you consider somebody your enemy, somebody an opponent, it is not that చూసినప్పుడల్లా పళ్ళు నూరి కళ్ళు నూరి కాదనమాట. You will have to have a proper relationship, and you have to strike when you have to. It is like a proper wife and husband relationship. You should maintain that balance. You should know when to strike. You should look for that opportunity to strike. You should strike in such a way that the enemy will not get up. Here the husband is the enemy. You should strike in such a way that, it is like nuclear deterrence. You see that in the first strike deterrence, second strike deterrence, etc. In the first strike deterrence, what is said is you should strike in such a way that the enemy doesn't get up. That is where you are trying to capture so many nuclear weapons. Now, when we say the deterrence, etc., you have to have a number of them. One is not sufficient. Many have to be there. Because when you strike, the enemy should not get up. Second strike capacity is after you being struck, you should be able to get up and strike back. That is the second strike capability. So both you will have to develop in the relationship. See, nuclear story teaches us so much. Feuding and raiding. Feuding is something like what we know in our own language is factionalism. One for one is fine. Feuding is series of revenges. My grandfather killed your grandfather's wife. Peda poyindo, వదిలేయచ్చు కదా, లేదు. And from there it started, mutual killing. The mutual killing would result in feuding, generations of it. Raiding. Raiding is a phenomena that you find in Arabian enemy tribes. I mean, in the enemy raiding means sporadic kind of attacks that you get into and loot. That's the only purpose. You don't want to win. You only want to survive with some kind of additional resources. Arabian societies are known for raiding. Afghans are known for it. You try to attack your enemy and capture slaves, capture women, capture the wealth that you can put hand on. And the last one is large-scale confrontation, the proper war that you fight. That's the state category. Small, small things are not sufficient for us. We have to formally fight a war. So the war also had got evolved so much. Starting from maybe that Mahabharata war, some people that side, some people this side, somebody comes, talk, 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 talk. And then you say, okay, let us fight, you go. And then you blow the beacon. And with the beacon, the war starts early in the morning. Evening, when time is over, people decide, okay, let us call beacon once again. And then you stop, you repair everything, nurse your wounded people. By morning, you once again rejuvenate. So systematic the war is. I really love that. There has to be proper planning. And the time also, lunch gap, dinner gap, kind of. And now there is no time actually. So unethical the warfares are, so unethical. You actually, at one point of time, people used to take pride in killing the enemy from the front, not from the back. But these days doesn't matter. Everything is fair in war. You'll have to win, that's it. You'll have to win. And hence you are striking the people who are sleeping. You strike, because you know pretty well, if the person is awake, you will not win the war. So you strike when your enemy sleeps. Nidralone, kind of. And you're not actually mindful of whom you are killing. You don't mind killing the children, killing the women, killing the unarmed people. And then you sit in the UN Assembly and talk. You sit in the UN Assembly and talk about the justice, about humanity. You talk about resolutions. Finally, what you're doing, God knows. So the modern world had redefined violence. We have redefined violence. Several wars are won even before they are fought. That's where we talk about the biological, chemical warfare, etc., water warfare. You cut the water sources and gradually you kill the enemy. Enemy is getting killed by himself. You need not have to spill a drop of blood. That is the modern warfare. Anthropologists are sitting and writing how the war is being fought. We are actually glorified reporters. We are glorified reporters. Some accident happens on the road. You're not taking the victims to the hospital. On the other hand, you're taking the photographs and putting in the Facebook and kind of. There is no difference between them and an anthropologist. So we are glorified reporters. You can say that in the exam, no problem. Let me bring to you one other interesting topic. So there are some topics which I will be sharing with you. One will be commodification of tribes. This is something that I want you to be prepared for the 2020 exam. Commodification of tribes. I'll be also sharing this one, nationalism, and then problems of Jains. I was coming up with this statement there. Regarding the Jains, he wrote, with no God to give riches, because they don't believe in God. No? Jains don't believe in God. With no God to give riches, they are the richest of the minorities. If you have God, there is a problem. You have to ask God. They need not have to ask God, because there is no God. My God. I don't think you must have heard about God and thought about God so much before joining this course. Finally, a revelation must have come that yes, there is God, there is God. Huh? Kind of. The very less discussed area in anthropology. Generally, when you conduct a research, you write papers and do stuff, the things boil down to patronage. The things boil down to the kind of monetary and other administrative support you get. Somehow this was a topic that was not encouraged by the rulers, including the founders of anthropology, the British. If somebody was writing, they had to write at their own risk of being punished by their own people, by their own governments. How do we define a common makeshift definition? ठीक है, वहाँ तक एक statement हो गया. Nationalism is a feeling based on ethnicity. Fine. That's where I stand. Anything else? Support for national interests. Nationalism is a support for national interest. Hanji sir.
Feeling of oneness.
Feeling of oneness, that is ethnic identity. Okay. Or what do you do with that feeling? If there is a feeling, you have to do something with the feeling, right? What do you do with that feeling? Amma? What do you mean by sovereignty?
Not to succumb to other superpowers and
Okay, somebody outside. So you are identifying that somebody is supreme, and who is supreme?
I'm not saying that someone is supreme, but what I'm saying is that our ideas should be preserved and they have to be, they have to be fought for in a globalized world.
మళ్ళీ చెప్పు ఫస్ట్ నుంచి చెప్పు.
What I said is that
Too many ideas you are getting.
what I'm saying is that nationalism is a feeling of preserving one's own sovereignty,
Okay.
stating what are our ideas and fighting for what we stand for.
What we stand for. Okay. Great. That's where the definition between patriotism and nationalism comes up. In patriotism, there is an adjustment, there is an acceptance. If you are a patriot, you do definitely stand for your people, your state, your people. But then if something is wrong with you, you accept, you try to correct yourself. In nationalism, there is that nationalistic fervor, and there is an extra dose of irrationality. Nationalism is a feeling of oneness, a feeling of preserving your own ethnic identity at the expense of your own mistakes. You don't accept your gray areas. If somebody says that Indians are the lazy whatever, you won't accept. We always harp over our own culture. We always think that we have a superior culture. Others do not have culture. And if at all we peep into our own culture, the culture that we have is everywhere we go, we are free to urinate. That is the beautiful culture we have. We clean our own homes and throw the garbage in the neighbor's house. That is nationalism. And when the discipline tries to examine nationalism, it tries to point out the negative aspects. So there are two things under the study of nationalism. One, the process of creation of a nation. The process of creation of a nation and how the nation is handled under the ism. How the nations are created and how the nation is handled. Meaning in terms of relations within, in terms of relations with the people outside. I have given in your book Nation, a comparative account of nationalism in Africa and India. We say that we have fought for our nation. Every time it is not necessary that you fight for your nation. Sometimes nations are given to you. Nations are created and given to you, like they have done in Africa. Several nations, they did not fight for maybe South Africa is an exception, but several others are exceptions. But every time nations are not created out of the will of the people. I'll show you something. I mean, this statement, I don't know whether yeah. Nation exists from the moment a handful of influential people decide that it should be so, and it starts, in most cases, as an urban elite phenomena. In order to be efficient political tool, it must nevertheless eventually achieve mass appeal. It may not begin, it may not be the consensus of everybody. A handful of congressmen must have thought that we should have a nation. The moment you have thought, it is already created. So nation is something that is there in the minds of people. State need not be necessary. State is the physical form. Nation is the imaginary form. Nation is a psychological feeling. Nation is a feeling, state is a physical entity. So Palestine is a nation, it is not a state. At one point of time, Israel was a nation, it was not a state, but it got established. So the nation comes into picture the moment a handful of people decided, influential ones decided that it should be there. It comes into existence. But then for its own continuation, for its own existence, there has to be a mass appeal. That's where he thought that people have to come. Freedom movement has to be a mass one. So in the establishment of nation itself, there are only a handful of elitistic people, powerful people. When you say national interest, it is a foregone conclusion. So nation is not with the people that are there. People are not there in the definition. State has people in the definition. For nation, influential few is sufficient. They decided. ఆవిడ ప్రేమించింది, నేను ప్రేమించాల్సి వచ్చింది అంతే. నీదేం ప్రమేయం లేదు. Nation is like that. They decided that there should be a nation, and hence it has come. That's where we have to know that we are never free. We fought for freedom, but there is no absolute freedom. Everything has a cost. Your freedom has a cost. If freedom is given, you will have to take the responsibility also. How many times you must have told your parents that let me decide for myself. If something goes wrong, I will be responsible. If you decided, if something goes wrong, I'll hold you responsible. అలాంటి వాళ్ళు భయపడతారా? లేదుగా. అయితే కానీ very important, sir, at every stage of life, exerting your freedom, asserting your freedom, doing what you strongly believe in at your personal level, at your official level, at the national level, because you are going to be there in the deciding positions. The problem is when our growing up in the families is on the platform of indecisiveness. The growing up in the families are on the platform of indecisiveness. You're not given freedom to decide at any point of time. It looks so funny occasionally. You go to a dinner party. So you ask people, what do you want to have? Anything is fine. How can anything be fine? I'll cut a donkey and give you. Will you eat? How can anything be fine? And I especially see this between the couples. I feel so funny. We sit on the next table and then these are there. And the man is asking, what will you eat? Anything is eat chokadu gottalu asalu. Anything is fine enti. ఆడు విషయం ఇస్తావు తింటావా ఆడు విషయం ఇస్తాడు తినేసేయి చచ్చిపో గొడవ వదిలిపోదు చచ్చిపో ఇస్ డై he'll give poison you eat and die. These very people, if you have that kind of an upbringing, that kind of a personality, you go become an officer. Superior says, what will you do? Anything is fine. That is the problem. Our bureaucrats, administrators are properly brainwashed. What goes on in training is that once the selection happens, people would start showing glitters to the people who are writing the exam. Life is shown as full of stars and lights. It is not now. The kind of training that we undergo as officers is the colonial one. The colonial rulers have given the content, the method of training. They did not want thinking people. They wanted only those people who can execute the colonial ideas in the colonies. And fortunately or unfortunately, at the training level, nothing much changed. It is the same kind of a training, same, more or less the same curriculum. It's a different story that the new Prime Minister is trying to change every ancient shackle. He is trying to unbolt every door that is closed. Especially with the bureaucracy, he is trying to shake the foundations. The lateral entry was one testimony of that. People from outside bureaucracy can go become the joint commissioners to begin with. With the kind of jobs that you have done outside, now you can actually replace. One other problem we find is the positions that were only reserved for IAS officers till now, people from the other services are also able to take. That is one major problem now. IAS are heartbroken. The monopoly is not there. So when I am saying all this, it is only to caution you that how you are going to trace your own, lay a foundation for your own career. Once you have stopped thinking, very difficult, sir. You're trained not to think. It's a different story that you are made to write beautiful write-ups. And you are in a demand globally. All the UN officers, at the draftsman's positions, they look for Indian officers because you have a flowery language. You know how to write in a way others cannot understand. In the complex way. You know the complex way because you have actually started training by reading Hindu. The very complex thing. The time when you have started understanding the Hindu, you got selected. And that kind of a writing skill is properly trained, and then you are sharpened in your academies. You produce laws that are most complex in the world. We have the most complex laws in the world. Even we put the British to shame, the people who have trained us. So with all that, this is what we are going to do. That, and then we govern the nation. There are couple of things here, sir. There are 3 terms that occur in your syllabus: nationalism, regionalism, and communalism. All 3 anthropology is less interested in. So nation is one of the ethnic group typologies. Maybe it starts from your, maybe it's something like your race, caste, region, creed, province, religion, at the highest level, nation. All three have a limited writing in anthropology. Somehow regionalism they have done considerably. I find writings in the realm of communalism so funny in the discipline. Because anthropology has cultural relativism. Anything is fine. Typical bureaucratic. Anything is fine. So what to write when questions come from these? I have given a good lot of thinkers in the document which you will read back home. But then I will give this word. There is one writer called Anderson. He used this phrase called the anomaly of nationalism. Anomaly of nationalism. See, for him, nationalism derives its force from its combination of political legitimation and emotional power. When it comes to the second one, that is regionalism, our orientation was, to some extent people have considered it significant. Several people have written ethnographic profiles on regionalistic movements. Regionalism is not considered to be such a great threat when compared to nationalism. I repeat my statement. Regionalism is not considered to be such a great threat when compared to nationalism. Sir, when Iran-Iraq war was happening, what was the theme? Was it nation? Was it communalism? Was it USA in operation? When Iran-Iraq war was happening, you know that there was Iran-Iraq war? Regional hegemony, or about religion in the sense which religion versus which religion? Sectarianism rather. Sectarianism flared up with the external interventions. That became a global crisis. People from the other parts of the world were also getting interested in it. More than anybody else, the Americans wanted their weapons to be bought by the others. Soviets wanted their weapons trade. Whatever may be the product, your business has to flourish. Whether that may be cigars or alcohol or drugs or weapons. You have to have buyers. So the idea of a nation under the carpet was actually having the reasons of the commercial trade. People were not selling weapons, they were selling nation. They were selling the idea of nation. So nation is a complex thing, created on the foundation of power. Some influential people wanted to show that they have created. What is more funnier is, people who create it, they seem to be rejecting holding power. Don't get me wrong when I'm saying this. If we think that Gandhi had created the nation, for example, rejected power, what was your take when you heard this? father of the nation, didn't want to rule. He wanted his, he was not interested. Okay, और बताइए, father of the nation rejected. Yeah, if he was interested, he could have got. He was not interested. Okay, और बताइए. He didn't want to take side with any of the politics. He was interested, but he didn't want to be into active politics or retirement time. So let me take rest. My purpose was only to give freedom. My job is done. Ruling is your job. Or what was your take? As children also, you must have read history. Gandhi didn't want to be the prime minister. He wanted others. Ayipinda. Unification work okay. My question was, is it that the party also didn't want him to be a leader? And then party was projecting that Gandhi didn't want to be a leader? Didn't want to be a leader? Okay. So he had given up. A personal choice rather. But let us compare with somebody in Southern Africa. Mandela fought, and then maybe the most important event, as our friend says, is maybe they did not get divided among themselves. I think there was a rather graceful acceptance by him. People also accepted him, and then he had continued with. We have several other examples from elsewhere in Africa. You have Zimbabwe, the president who had fought, who was there for a long time. So if at all, the purpose of establishment, the story of establishment of the nation, and the future after the nation was established, if both are matching, it's an altogether different game. But when it comes to certain countries where nations are created with some other foundation, and the way you are actually governing them, if those two are actually not matching. Now when it comes here, in our own discipline, we actually look at the term nation, nationalism as something that is belittling the emic ideology, and hence our presentation will be very much different. When it comes to regionalism, there is a respectful treatment of anthropological works. Whichever tribal revolt we were studying, our ideas were considered valid by the government, and they tried to operate using the kind of ideas the anthropologists were giving. So a respectful treatment of the discipline had happened in the regionalism, but when it comes to nationalism, neither we were interested in writing, our ideas were not taken by them. And then you have the third one, communalism. You must have in your history studied communalism, where it must have started and all that stuff. We are not interested in that, of course. In the name of communalism, the discipline did not do anything. That's where I feel that where there is a difficulty, you are hiding your face. You didn't come out vocally giving solutions. So if at all one says that status of anthropology, I can't say these things earlier in the course, because you would carry that throughout your course. I didn't want that. And this is also the reason why we don't want the students to attempt these questions. They are found to be risky unless otherwise your treatment is proper. In the name of communalism, you see, even if you look at your syllabus, there's a whole lot of Hindu philosophy there. And it is said that how other religions have impacted, how we have impacted them. Maybe perhaps how various religions were impacting the tribes. Nowhere we are trying to talk about the kind of communal bitterness the kind of maybe the extreme violent relations a religious group was having with the other. That is not a subject matter in the conventional anthropology. Thankfully, in the later part, in the early 2000s, this tendency had begun. Some of the scholars have started writing on the communal violences. But I think the treatment was not really given that way. So the subject matter of communalism is not existing. And see, if at all we are hell-bent on writing, maybe we will have to talk about how anthropological approaches might help in understanding the other's perspective. Kind of things we might perhaps say, but then not really much. It looks so very funny, pick up any regular book. They don't even talk about, how caste has pervaded into the other religions. Say, if I give a question like impact of Islam on Indian society, on Hindu society, people would start writing that maybe monotheism had an impact on Indian society. You know pretty well. Monotheistic faith was much earlier in time in India. The time when Islam had come, monotheism in Hinduism had already lost its sheen. The Nirankari God concept, that was almost not there. Even now we find only a few people subscribing to this idea of Nirankari God. So, and then the books write about language that Islamic groups have got, music, or maybe the architecture forms, or maybe some kind of governance things. When you look at this, there is so much of shallowness there. The writings seem to be so far from reality, because you know pretty well the history was filled with blood, the communal violences that have happened for such a long time, and intermittently at several places happening, the kind of inner violence that is there, the failure to accept the other religious group. When all this is a reality, your answers are not showing, your books are not showing. So anthropology did not treat communalism in a way it could have been treated. If at all you have to write the answer, you write this. Instead of saying that, see, they came, they gave us biryani, they gave us these kind of clothes. That's what students write. They bring language, Urdu literature and all that stuff. All this is fine. But where is the animosity exhibited in your answers? So you are far from reality. So the way anthropology dealt with these topics is truly unanthropological. Don't be disappointed. That's how it is. That is the reason why generally I ask the students not to miss the last class. Sir, anything you want to talk? Anything you want to talk? చెప్పు, మనసులో ఏదో ఉంది. మనసులో కోరిక పెట్టుకొని వెళ్తే కష్టం. కోరికలు ఏమైనా ఉంటే చెప్పేయాలి, తీర్చేసుకోవాలి. ఆఫ్టర్ ఆల్ జీవితం ఒకటే. Genetic imprints. There are a few things, sir, which like there are genetic markers of this kind which we don't see questions from there, but this is one, like I'm trying to give you some kind of a structure to these questions. On the same lines we will be treating the others as well. Like body fat is one topic as a genetic marker. So these topics have to come with a basic meaning of the terms. Like, in this particular case, I was trying to see what are the various types of fat and how exactly what are the fatty acids and the types of fat. This is what I was talking about, essential body fats and storage body fats. The basic meaning of them, and then basically what we look for is the kind of studies of this kind which innumerably we try to present there. Like, I tried to give Hannah's study and various other people, how culturally, populations wise, the body fat distribution is varying. Some communities are known for, higher upper body fat, some are known for lower body fat, and that is linked to the kind of lifestyles they must be having. So, not very complex ones there. You try to define the problem and then you try to see the distribution. I'll try to show something here. For example, this is a slightly longer one that I was trying to make, but several others as well I try to share with you. In the same lines they are also written. Like, you have transferrin gene or HLA kind of things. This is the basic information that most of us know, but you're not going to write all this in your answer. When he says blood group as a genetic marker, this is for your own comfort that you should be knowing, and hence we make it available to you. Like, you have several components within the blood, and this is a popular thing that we come across, blood groups. So when you pick up books like B.M. Das also, they try to give you the basic explanation of the blood groups. Who can be a donor, who can be a recipient. But this actually doesn't serve any purpose there. ठीक है? I mean, I like this picture. Some are sad faces, some are good faces. This is a conventional thing. Basic understanding of who is the donor, who is ఇవ్వడమే కావాలి, ఎవడిచ్చినా పర్లేదు అనుకునేవాళ్ళు, నేను అందరికీ ఇస్తాను పుచ్చుకుంటావా అనేవాళ్ళు. So that is what is the difference there. Those are the applications in the discipline. At various places we come across this based on the blood group. So the other day, an old student of ours, she is a doctor, husband is a doctor, mother-in-law is a doctor, and she gave birth to a child with a blood group that is not possible. చదువుకుంటే ఏదో అయిందంటారు. And now the problem starts. Huge amount of physical abuse, that's one part of the relation now. And now they are going for paternity testing. She says, I don't want to get through all this ordeal. If you are not really happy with this stuff, I go for divorce. But they say that nothing doing, we have to conform. So they are trying to do all kinds of tests, and now they have certain people in mind that maybe perhaps they could be the reason. Why will they volunteer and give the samples? See, if the dispute is between you and him, the dispute is between the wife and the husband, the couple there. Their samples may be collected and testing may be done. You may confirm whether it is the father or not the father. To that extent, fine. But then you have a suspicion of somebody and then you drag them, you ask them to give the sample. Why will he give? And just because one of your family members is a senior judge, it doesn't mean that you can call anybody, sample de ke jao ye. To koi hai nahi. Very painful things, sir. Very, very painful. That's the problem. And the lady says, I am not guilty. Courts generally go by the female's version. They go by the female version, they should go by the female's version. And now I don't know what's going on. The other day she says, this is the ordeal that I am going through. They don't let me go out. I am almost in confinement. No job now. The problem is, husband and mother-in-law are doctors. If they had not been doctors, maybe even if she was guilty, she would have had a happy life. The problem, she says, is she wanted a doctor husband. They searched and caught hold of that fellow and don't know what now. Blood group studies. Lives are pathetic. And then your genetic marker answer has to incorporate these. This is the primary information that the examiner looks for. Distribution of blood groups in various populations and different regions, supported by a map that shows the distribution. This forms your core of the answer, where they are distributed. But what we find in the answers is they write the entire story of blood groups. ఎవడిచ్చాడు ఎవడు తీసుకుంటున్నాడు at the most, if you would want to write, maybe perhaps some part of immunology you can bring in, like hemoglobin related diseases you may perhaps, but that is separately there in your syllabus HB. So what I will be doing for you is, we would give you information related to different regions where specific form of hemoglobin related disorders are popularly found and what studies were done by anthropologists. They are not going to give any kind of acute, they are only report, this population has, this population has. A crude fact oriented kind of a thing. So don't worry about that, leave that job to me, I will be providing, and be happy, chill. So many regions out there. We are in Asia, right? Common one. Most of us maybe be positive. No? We are all positive people, be positive. So based on your blood group, you may choose to which region you would want to migrate, because if something happens, you must have blood group there available. So if at all your answers are on these lines, you can score. Just because somebody said physical anthropology is scoring, whatever you write, it will not score you. So that is something. That forms your answer on ABO system as a genetic marker. And one small other document will also be given on Human Genome Project, which is something like an expected one, so you should know what they are doing. When governments are spending so much money, is there any usefulness of the whole thing? That logo you must have come across the individual with stretched arms and legs. There's a reason behind that logo. initial pictures, initial logo that was suggested was Ardhanarishwar kind of, and then they gave only the male in the logo. That's another controversy. So don't worry, that's how it is. So those 4 or 5 topics you will be getting. There are certain things that I wanted to give in the conclusion. We are there. People, if you have not visited, go visit Charminar. Buy them for your people. If you don't want to buy, see and enjoy. You don't want to see, eat. Because Hyderabad is known for all of them, starting from there to there to there and that. That's where we are. And sir, one paper was circulated to you. I'll tell you what this is all about. Okay? Everything that is required I have given, but I would want to talk about these. Because some of the queries were coming, it is my responsibility to answer them. Because the first test is scheduled on 5th, the skepticism will be there. People might think that, okay, if it is 5th, I'm not still prepared, I won't join. What I am trying to do is, we would give a later entry. Like, maybe some people would want to join after a month or a couple of months, because you would want to do a bit of revision and study, then I would want to come. So you can actually go for this. 2 months of bracket I have given, till which time you can take an entry into this very series. But whenever you are joining, you should start with the first test only. Not that after 2 months somewhere there is another test, I would start with that. No, you would be starting with the test 1, follow that sequence. It might so happen that your neighbor's birthday was there, you missed one test in between. So you don't try to go for the next test. Follow that sequence only, even if you have missed any of the tests in it. Your validity right from the day you have started to write will be for 1 year, 365 days validity will be there. And hence that problem will not be there. And then I have also mentioned some offline centers. Suppose you are writing in Hyderabad, you can write with us. In Bangalore also you can have an offline center. And sir, generally, in the first week the explanation will be a little late because I am not there, but generally every Saturday will be the test and Monday or Tuesday will be the explanation. In the classroom there will be a discussion kind of. And for those who are writing online, you will be having the same class uploaded there. And even the offline students, you can have your, so the distinction is primarily whether you would want to come here and write the test. But otherwise the explanations, your uploading of the scripts, everything will be online only. Explanation, if those of you who are in the vicinity who would want to attend the class for the explanation, you may do so, most welcome. Even if nobody is there, I will record and send, that's different story. Unte బాగుంటుంది లేకపోతే ఇంకా బాగుంటుంది నా ఇష్టం ఉన్నది చెప్పుకోవచ్చు kind of. So try to see to it then, and then initially अच्छा और एक query ये था. You should have started with 250 marks right from the beginning. చెప్పేవాళ్ళు ఎన్నైనా చెప్తారండి. నువ్వు ఫస్ట్ రోజు కూర్చొని 250 words రాయు, 250 marks రాయు. That's very much clear. So we have, I'm starting with some chapter wise things and then gradually taking you forth, follow that. I try to see to it that about 5 times you would be studying the entire syllabus with this, and also that by the time you are going for a break for the prelim, you are finishing the entire syllabus chapter-wise writing. My idea was that you would have a stress-free preparation, stress-free writing, and then it should go so smoothly. It should go smoothly along with your general studies. You're not straining on this. No? That's the whole game. After marriage, I did not see him so patient. Before that, he was, of course, and as a student, he was. But then after that, kind of. That's the reason why I always am very, very thankful for listening to me. That's very, very important. आजकल कोई सुनता नहीं है किसी का. क्लास में आप 3 घंटा बैठ के सुन रहे हो, ये छोटी बात नहीं है. It's quite a big thing. And if at all you have left, the rest of the world came only for optional here. That has been a trend, of course. For quite a long time, people have been doing this. For 3-4 months, people come, enjoy Hyderabad, and kind of, agar mauka mila to class bhi enjoy karte hain, and then you go back. So hope to see you all tomorrow. And then also remember this, I don't exaggerate when I say this. The reason why my scripts might take time in evaluation is that the connect that I follow from the previous batches. I say it with an affirmation that I always have this very strong alumni. Though I don't advertise my alumni, that see, you know, this fellow, this girl, kind of, I don't advertise, but then there's a very strong alumni, and the connect that, you know, I try to help out whenever you have an issue with the subject, and then you try writing, you try discussing. So it's like more or less I am there on a call anytime. Kind of. That's the reason why I take time. Morning before the class, somebody was asking what is the time that you take for evaluation. The standard 14 days I buy from the student. It might so happen that occasionally within 2 days I would revert your scripts. But sometimes, you know, it might take a week or so. तो इसके लिए थोड़ा सा आपको patience रखना है. आज लिखा कल दे दिया, ये होगा नहीं. I can give. But I don't want to put tick marks and into marks. I was actually aghast, you know, as a child, as a youngster in UPSC. When I went to one place, I was there in the reception waiting for the teacher, and the teacher अपने junior को train कर रहे कि कैसे evaluation करना है. So the statement the senior person was giving to the junior was, make it a point that you put mark, some tick mark on every page. Tick mark से student को लगता है कि आपने वो पढ़ा. ठीक है? But I don't do that. ठीक है? लगता होगा कि पूरे स्क्रिप्ट में I don't put tick marks. I hate it actually. कभी मैंने कोशिश की उससे रखने की, बहुत लंबा निकलता है वो प्रिंट में जो आप PDF पे करते हो ना, बहुत लंबे लंबे निकलते हो. So I don't generally, you know, very rarely I do that. I believe in writing what I feel. So feel free, you can approach, I am approachable, you can leave a mail, you can write on the doubts corner, along with the tests also you have the doubts corner, on your portal also you have a doubts corner. अगर कुछ भी नहीं है तो अशोक नगर आके जोर से मेरा नाम बुला लेना. I will be there because I am not like somebody like a Lakshmi or Srinivas. No, अगर आप पूछते हो, अगर रोड पे ना जाके एक पत्थर मारो किसी को, it will definitely strike a Lakshmi or Srinivas here. I am not like that. I am the only one in the vicinity. So I would come over, not to worry on that also. Thank you so very much. Take the best care of yourself. Love your parents. Love your children and your partner.